Admiral Quan stood before the massive viewing screen on the bridge of his warship. The blue glow of the holographic display showed tiny dots scattered across the edge of the galaxy. Each dot represented a human colony world. There were only 200 of them, which seemed laughably small to Quan. The galactic hegemony had ruled space for 50,000 years. They controlled 40,000 star systems. Their fleets were unstoppable. Their technology was supreme. Every species they encountered either joined them willingly or was crushed beneath their might. It had always been this way. These humans are nothing, Quan said to himself as he studied the display. The human settlements looked primitive and weak. They had no massive space stations. No giant fleets patrolling their borders. No weapons that could threaten the hegemony. They were just another small species that would soon learn to bow before galactic power. Dr. Yuna worked quietly at her station nearby. She was the ship's expert on alien species. Her job was to study new races and figure out the best way to conquer them. She had done this work for many years and had never found a species that could resist the hegemony for long. "Admiral," Dr. Yuna called out suddenly. Her voice sounded confused. "We are receiving transmissions from the human colonies." Quan turned toward her. This was normal. Most species tried to communicate when they first saw hegemony ships. Usually they begged for mercy or tried to negotiate. Some offered tribute. A few declared war, which never ended well for them. "What are they saying?" Quan asked as he walked toward the communication station. Lieutenant Jihan was the young officer in charge of monitoring all incoming messages. He wore the standard blue uniform of the hegemony fleet. His face looked puzzled as he listened to his headphones and watched the scrolling text on his screens. "Sir, this is very strange," Jihan said. "They are broadcasting the same message on every frequency. Every single human world is sending identical transmissions." "Well, what does it say?" Quan demanded impatiently. Jihan looked up from his console. "The message is, we strongly advise you to reconsider. You do not understand what you are dealing with. This is your only warning. Run." The bridge became completely silent. Every officer stopped what they were doing and stared. In all the long history of the hegemony, nothing like this had ever happened before. When the great fleets arrived to claim new territory, alien species reacted in predictable ways. Some begged. They would send desperate pleas asking for mercy or offering to surrender without a fight. Others fled. They would abandon their worlds and run deeper into space, hoping to escape. Many simply gave up and accepted their fate. A few foolish ones declared war and prepared to fight a battle they could never win. But no species had ever warned the hegemony. No alien race had ever told the mighty galactic empire to run away. It was unthinkable. It was impossible. Yet that was exactly what these humans were doing. "Are you certain that is the correct translation?" Quan asked slowly. "Yes, sir," Jihan replied. "I have checked it multiple times. The human language is not difficult to understand. They are definitely telling us to run away." Quan felt his anger rising. How dare these primitive creatures threaten the hegemony? They had only 200 worlds compared to 40,000. Their technology was centuries behind. Their ships were tiny. Their weapons were weak. Yet they had the nerve to send warnings instead of surrender offers. "Primitive bravado," Quan muttered under his breath. "They think they can scare us with empty threats." But when he looked at Dr. Yuna, her expression made him pause. She was not smiling or laughing at the human message. Instead, she looked worried. Her eyes were focused on her data screens, and she was frowning as she read through information about human behavior patterns. "Doctor," Quan said in a commanding voice, "share your analysis." Dr. Yuna hesitated for a moment. She had studied hundreds of alien species during her career. She understood how different races thought and acted when faced with superior force. But something about these humans did not fit the normal patterns. "Admiral," she began carefully, "I have been analyzing human communications and behavior. There is something unusual here. Most species in their position would be afraid. They would try to negotiate or prepare defenses or simply flee. But the humans are doing none of these things." "What do you mean?" Quan asked. "Look at their colony worlds," Dr. Yuna said, pointing to the holographic display. "There is no panic. No evacuation fleets leaving their planets. No military buildup that we can detect. They are acting as if they are not concerned about our arrival at all." "Of course they are not concerned," Quan said dismissively. "They are too primitive to understand the danger they face." "That is what I thought at first," Dr. Yuna continued. "But their warning message suggests otherwise. They claim we do not understand what we are dealing with. That implies they know something we do not. Species that are truly primitive do not send warnings to vastly superior forces. They beg or run or hide. Quan considered her words. In his long military career, he had conquered dozens of star systems. Dr. Yuna was right about how alien species normally behaved. The confident tone of the human warning was definitely unusual. Perhaps they have allies, suggested Lieutenant Jihan. Maybe they have made agreements with other powerful species. Impossible, Quan replied immediately. Our intelligence networks monitor all major civilizations. No one would dare oppose us. These humans are alone. But even as he spoke those words, Quan felt a small doubt growing in his mind. The human message played again through the ship's speakers. This is your only warning. Run. There was something in those words that made experienced military officers pause and think. The massive crystal towers of the hegemony capital reached high into the purple sky. Inside the tallest spire, the Galactic Council gathered for an emergency meeting. 12 ancient beings sat around a circular table made of polished stone. Each represented a different conquered species that now served the Empire. Elder Counselor Miho was the oldest member of the council. His green scales shimmered under the bright lights as he reviewed the reports from Admiral Quan's fleet. The humans had been sending their strange warning messages for 3 days now. Every hour brought the same transmission across all frequencies. This is ridiculous, Miho said, his voice filled with anger. In 50,000 years, no primitive species has dared to threaten us. These mammals think they can scare the mighty hegemony with words. The other council members nodded in agreement. Counselor Deho, a tall figure with 4 arms, leaned forward in his chair. The humans control only 200 star systems. We rule 40,000. The mathematics are simple. They cannot possibly pose any threat to us. Dr. Yuna stood quietly near the back of the Great Hall. She had been called to provide her expert analysis on the human situation. Her research over the past few days had revealed some disturbing patterns, but she knew the council did not want to hear about complications. Dr. Yuna, called Elder Miho. Step forward and give us your report. Dr. Yuna walked slowly to the speaker's platform in the center of the room. All eyes turned toward her as she activated the holographic display. Images of human worlds appeared floating in the air above the council table. Honorable counselors, she began carefully, I have completed my initial study of human behavior and communications. I believe we should proceed with extreme caution. Several council members made sounds of disapproval. They had expected a simple report confirming human weakness, not a recommendation for caution. Explain yourself, demanded Counselor Deho. What could possibly concern you about such a weak species? Dr. Yuna took a deep breath. The humans are not behaving like other species we have encountered. Their warning messages are too confident, too specific. Most primitive races make empty threats when they are afraid. But the humans are not making threats. They are giving warnings. What is the difference? Asked another counselor. A threat is what you say when you are desperate and afraid, Dr. Yuna explained. A warning is what you give when you know something the other person does not. The humans are telling us to run because they believe we are in danger, not because they are in danger. Elder Miho slammed his scaled fist on the table. Nonsense. What could they possibly know that we do not? We have studied their technology. We have mapped their colonies. We have analyzed their military capabilities. They are decades behind us in every area that matters. That is exactly what concerns me, Dr. Yuna replied. Our intelligence shows they should be terrified of us. But they are not. Instead, they are warning us to leave. Either they are completely insane or they know something we have missed. Respectfully, Elder Miho, Dr. Yuna continued, I recommend we study them further before taking military action. Their transmissions suggest there may be factors we have not yet discovered. The hall erupted in angry voices. Several counselors stood up and began shouting at once. The idea that the mighty hegemony should waste time studying a weak species was insulting to them. Enough, roared Counselor Deho, his 4 arms spread wide. We have wasted enough time on these creatures already. Every day we delay makes us look weak to other species who might be watching. We must act decisively. Elder Miho nodded in agreement. Battle Group Tamin will be dispatched immediately. 500 of our finest warships with 2 million troops. They will demonstrate proper galactic order to these insolent humans. Dr. Yuna felt her heart sink. But Elder Miho, if I am correct about the humans, sending a battle group could be. The decision is made, Miho interrupted sharply. Captain Sora will lead the assault. The humans will learn what happens when primitive species dare to challenge their betters. The council session ended quickly after that. Dr. Yuna gathered her research materials and left the crystal spire feeling deeply worried. She had tried to warn them, but the counselors were too proud to listen. They could not imagine that a species with only 200 worlds might pose any real threat. Captain Sora received her orders while her ship was docked at the main military station. She read through the mission briefings with growing unease. 500 ships seemed like massive overkill for dealing with a primitive species. The hegemony usually conquered entire civilizations with much smaller forces. "Captain," called her communications officer. "We are still receiving those human transmissions." "Put it on the main speakers," Sora ordered. The bridge filled with the calm voice of a human speaker. "You still have time to turn back. We have never wanted war, but we have prepared for it our entire existence. Please, for your own sake, run." Sora listened to the message several times. Something about the tone bothered her. The humans did not sound afraid or desperate. They sounded sad. Almost like they felt sorry for what was about to happen. "Prepared for it our entire existence," Sora repeated quietly to herself. What did that mean exactly? How could a species prepare for war their entire existence while claiming they did not want it? Her second-in-command, Commander Jean Wu, approached her chair. "Captain, the fleet is ready to depart. All 500 ships report battle readiness." Sora nodded slowly. "Very well. Set course for human space. But keep our sensors on maximum alert. I want to know about anything unusual we encounter." As Battle Group Tamin left the safety of hegemony space, Sora could not shake the feeling that they were missing something important. The human warnings continued to broadcast across the void, growing stronger as they approached human territory. "We have prepared for it our entire existence." Those words echoed in her mind like a prophecy of doom. The stars twisted and stretched as Captain Sora's massive fleet dropped out of hyperspace. 500 warships materialized in perfect formation above the human world called New Terra. The planet hung below them like a blue and green jewel against the darkness of space. "All ships report successful jump completion," announced Lieutenant Min-jae from the navigation station. "We are in position above the target world." Captain Sora stood on the bridge of her flagship, studying the planet through the main viewing screen. New Terra looked peaceful and quiet. Cities dotted the continents below, connected by roads and railways. According to their intelligence reports, 50 million humans lived on this world. "Perfect," Sora said to herself. "A large population to witness our demonstration of power." Commander Jean Wu approached her command chair with a tactical display pad. "Captain, our sensors show the planet has normal defensive systems. A few orbital defense stations and some small patrol ships. Nothing that can threaten us." "Excellent," Sora replied. "Begin standard conquest protocol. Prepare orbital bombardment platforms and ready the landing forces." The massive hegemony warships moved into attack positions. Energy weapons powered up with a low humming sound. Troop transports prepared to launch toward the planet's surface. Everything was proceeding exactly as it had hundreds of times before on hundreds of other worlds. "Orbital bombardment platforms ready," Commander Jean Wu reported. "We can begin demonstration strikes at your command." Sora was about to give the order when something on the tactical display caught her attention. She frowned and leaned forward in her chair. "Wait," she said, raising her hand. "Where are they?" "Captain?" Jean Wu asked, confused. "The humans," Sora explained. "Where are all the humans?" The bridge crew looked at their sensor readings more carefully. The cities below showed no movement. The streets were empty. No vehicles traveled the roads. No ships flew between the orbital stations. It was as if the entire planet had been abandoned. "Maybe they evacuated when they detected our fleet," suggested Lieutenant Min-jae. "Impossible," replied Commander Jean Wu. "We would have seen the evacuation ships. 50 million people cannot just disappear." Sora felt a cold chill run down her spine. This was not normal behavior. Other species either fled in visible panic or gathered their forces to resist. They did not simply vanish. "Launch the landing forces," she ordered. "Send Major Nari down with the first wave. Find out where those humans went." 20 large transport ships left the main fleet and descended toward New Terra's surface. Each transport carried 5,000 elite hegemony troops equipped with the most advanced weapons and armor in the galaxy. They had conquered countless worlds and never failed in their mission. Major Nari commanded the lead transport as it approached the planet's largest city. Through the viewport, she could see empty streets and silent buildings. No defensive fire rose to meet them. No enemy fighters appeared to challenge their approach. "This is too easy," Nari muttered to her sergeant. "Something is wrong here." The transports landed in the city's main plaza without incident. Ramps lowered and thousands of armored soldiers poured out, weapons ready. They spread out through the empty streets, checking buildings and searching for signs of the missing population. All squads report, Nari called into her communicator. What do you see? Nothing major, came the replies. Empty buildings. No humans anywhere. It's like they just vanished. Nari led her personal squad toward the city's government center. Their footsteps echoed off the empty walls as they moved through abandoned corridors. Everything looked normal except for the complete absence of people. They reached the building's central courtyard when the ground beneath their feet suddenly exploded. The blast threw Nari and her soldiers in all directions. Before they could recover, more explosions erupted all around them. But these were not bombs or missiles. The explosions came from hidden tunnels and concealed doorways built into the city itself. Contact! Contact everywhere! Nari screamed into her communicator as humans poured out of the ground like angry insects. They're in the walls, the sewers, the buildings themselves. But what emerged was not what any hegemony soldier expected to see. This was not a professional army with uniforms and standard weapons. This was something far more terrifying. Children who looked barely old enough to walk carried weapons and fired them with deadly accuracy. Elderly humans moved with perfect military precision, coordinating attacks through hand signals. Office workers, shopkeepers, teachers, and farmers all fought like trained soldiers who had been preparing for this moment their entire lives. Every human is a combatant. Nari reported desperately. The entire population is fighting us. From space, Captain Sora watched in horror as her landing forces were overwhelmed. Red warning lights flashed across her bridge as damage reports flooded in from the planet's surface. "Captain," called Commander Hayek from the sensor station. "We have multiple contacts approaching from hyperspace." Sora spun around to look at the tactical display. Dozens of new ships were appearing on their screens. But according to their intelligence, the humans only had a few dozen vessels in their entire fleet. "Where are they coming from?" Sora demanded. "I don't know, Captain," Hayek replied, his voice filled with confusion. "These ships are not coming from any of the known human systems. They appear to be launching from nothing. Empty space." More and more human ships continued to appear. Not dozens but hundreds, then thousands. They materialized from locations that showed as empty on every hegemony map and sensor scan. "Captain," Commander Hayek said slowly, "I think we have been looking at this wrong. These are not ships coming from hidden systems. These are hidden systems themselves. Military bases that we never detected. Shipyards that we never found. Defense platforms that we never saw." Sora stared at the growing swarm of human vessels surrounding her fleet. "How many?" "At least 2,000 separate installations, Captain. Maybe more. They have been completely invisible to our sensors until now." Commander Hayek's voice crackled through the communication system. "Captain, they have been watching us. They know our tactics, our weapons, our fleet movements. It's like they have been preparing specifically for us." The terrible truth hit Sora all at once. The humans had not just prepared for war. They had prepared for war against the hegemony specifically. The battle above New Terra raged for 6 terrible days. Captain Sora had never experienced anything like it in her long military career. The humans fought with a ferocity and skill that defied everything the hegemony knew about warfare. On the first day, her 500 ships seemed unstoppable. But the humans did not fight like other species. They did not line up their ships for honorable combat. Instead, they used tricks and tactics that the hegemony had never seen before. Human ships would appear from nowhere, strike hard and fast, then vanish before the hegemony could respond. They targeted weak points that no other species had ever discovered. They coordinated attacks across vast distances with perfect timing. Most disturbing of all, they seemed to know exactly how hegemony ships would move and react. By the second day, Sora realized her fleet was being hunted rather than fighting a battle. The humans had turned the space around New Terra into a deadly trap. Every move her ships made was anticipated. Every tactic was countered before it could be fully executed. "Captain," reported Commander Jean Wu on the third day, "we have lost over half our fleet. The humans are not just defeating us. They are destroying us completely." Sora watched another of her ships explode on the main viewing screen. The crew aboard that vessel had been friends and colleagues for many years. Now they were dead, killed by an enemy that seemed to understand hegemony warfare better than the hegemony itself. By the fourth day, only a few dozen ships remained from the original 500. The human fleet had grown larger as more hidden vessels revealed themselves. Sora counted at least 3,000 enemy ships now surrounding the remnants of Battle Group Tamine. On the fifth day, her flagship took critical damage. Emergency alarms blared throughout the bridge as systems failed one by one. All hands abandon ship, Sora ordered reluctantly. This is the captain. Evacuate immediately. She made it to an escape pod just as her ship's reactor went critical. The explosion lit up space like a small sun, taking with it the last symbol of hegemony power in human territory. Captain Sora floated alone in her tiny escape pod, watching the final moments of the battle. The few remaining hegemony ships were overwhelmed and destroyed within hours. Battle Group Tamine, once the pride of the Imperial fleet, was now nothing but scattered debris drifting through space. Human ships approached her escape pod. Sora had expected to be captured or killed, but instead she heard a calm voice over the communication system. Hegemony vessel, this is Admiral Jiho of the Human Defense Force. We are taking you aboard for medical treatment and repatriation. The human ship that rescued her was unlike any vessel she had ever seen. Hegemony ships were designed to be beautiful and intimidating, with smooth curves and shining metal. This human ship was brutal and functional, covered in armor plating and weapon systems. Every part of it had been designed for one purpose only: war. Sora was brought aboard through an airlock and immediately taken to the medical bay. She expected rough treatment from her captors, but instead found herself receiving excellent care from skilled medical personnel. The nurse treating her wounds was a young human man who introduced himself as Minjay. He worked with gentle efficiency, cleaning cuts and treating burns with advanced medical equipment. What shocked Sora most was that he spoke perfect Galactic Standard, the official language of the hegemony. You speak our language very well, Sora said as Minjay bandaged a cut on her arm. Thank you, Minjay replied politely. All humans learn Galactic Standard in school. It is required education. Sora was amazed. Not only did this human speak her language perfectly, but he seemed to know hegemony anatomy better than most of their own doctors. His treatment was precise and professional, showing detailed knowledge of how her species' body worked. How long have you been studying us? Sora asked quietly. Minjay paused in his work and looked at her with serious eyes. 300 years, he said simply. Since we first detected your expansion patterns moving toward our region of space. We knew you would reach us eventually. The medical bay door opened and an older human woman entered. She wore the uniform of a high-ranking officer and carried herself with the confidence of someone accustomed to command. Captain Sora, the woman said with a slight bow. I am Dr. Hiron, Chief Medical Officer of this vessel. You are probably wondering why we warned your people to stay away. Sora stared at her. Your people could have destroyed our entire fleet from the very beginning. Why did you let the battle last 6 days? Dr. Hiron sat down in a chair beside the medical bed. Her expression was sad but patient. Because we hoped you would see reason and withdraw. We have spent 3 centuries preparing for this moment, not because we wanted war, but because we knew it was inevitable. I don't understand, Sora said. Your empire has conquered thousands of species over 50,000 years, Dr. Hiron explained. But you have never encountered a species that refused to kneel. We studied your history, your tactics, your technology. We learned everything about you while remaining hidden ourselves. Through the viewport beside her bed, Sora could see human ships moving through space. But these were not the few dozen vessels that hegemony intelligence had detected. There were thousands of them, stretching as far as she could see. Massive battleships, sleek destroyers, enormous carriers filled with fighters. This is your true fleet, Sora whispered in amazement. Part of it, Dr. Hiron confirmed. We have been building and preparing for 300 years. Every human colony you discovered was just a civilian settlement. Our real military infrastructure remained hidden until now. Sora watched the endless stream of human warships and finally understood the terrible truth. The hegemony had not discovered a weak species with 200 primitive colonies. They had stumbled upon a military power that had been studying them for centuries and preparing specifically to fight them. The humans had warned them to run not out of arrogance, but out of mercy. The news of Battle Group Tamine's complete destruction reached the hegemony capital within hours. The Galactic Council erupted in fury and disbelief. 500 of their finest warships had been reduced to floating debris by a species they had dismissed as primitive. Elder Counselor Miho stood before the emergency assembly, his green scales darker with rage. This insult cannot stand. These humans have humiliated us in front of the entire galaxy. Every species under our rule is watching to see how we respond. The council chamber filled with angry voices as representatives from 40,000 star systems demanded immediate action. Some called for total war. Others suggested negotiation. But most simply wanted revenge for the shocking defeat. "We will mobilize everything," declared Counselor Deho, his forearms spread wide for emphasis. "Every ship, every soldier, every weapon in our arsenal. The humans will learn what happens when they defy galactic order." Within days, the largest military force in galactic history began assembling at staging points throughout hegemony space. 100,000 warships of every class and size gathered together. Massive super-dreadnoughts that could destroy entire planets. Fast attack cruisers designed for quick strikes. Enormous carrier ships filled with millions of fighter craft. Admiral Kwan received command of this vast armada aboard the super-dreadnought Infinite Glory. The ship was 3 kilometers long and bristled with enough weapons to flatten a moon. Its thick armor could withstand direct hits from the most powerful enemy guns. It was the ultimate symbol of hegemony might. "Today we end this rebellion," Kwan announced to his bridge crew as they prepared to depart for human space. "The humans will surrender unconditionally or we will erase every trace of their existence from the galaxy." Lieutenant Jihan worked at his station, monitoring communications from across the fleet. 100,000 ships required careful coordination to move together through hyperspace. The logistics were staggering, but the hegemony had done this before during their greatest conquests. "All ships report ready for hyperspace jump," Jihan announced. "Course set for the human capital world." "Execute," ordered Admiral Kwan. Space twisted around them as the massive fleet entered hyperspace. For several hours they traveled through the strange dimension between stars, moving faster than light toward their destination. Kwan spent the time studying intelligence reports about human defenses. According to their best estimates, the humans could field perhaps 50,000 ships at most. The hegemony fleet would outnumber them 2 to 1, with superior technology and centuries of military experience. This time there would be no clever tricks or surprise tactics. Raw power would decide the outcome. "Approaching hyperspace exit point," reported the navigation officer. "Preparing to return to normal space. All ships, prepare for immediate combat upon arrival," Kwan broadcast to the entire fleet. "Target any human vessels and destroy them without mercy." The coordinates locked. Reality shifted around them as 100,000 hegemony warships prepared to emerge above the human capital world. Kwan expected to find a few dozen enemy ships desperately trying to defend their home planet. Instead, he found himself in the middle of a nightmare. "Admiral?" Lieutenant Jihan's voice cracked with pure terror. "We're surrounded." The tactical display showed contacts in every direction. Not dozens of human ships but hundreds of thousands. Sleek destroyers hung in perfect formation alongside massive battle cruisers. Enormous carriers bristled with weapon systems and fighter craft. The human fleet stretched as far as their sensors could detect. "This is impossible," whispered Admiral Kwan, staring at the tactical screen in disbelief. "How did they get so many ships here so fast?" Captain Sungo's voice came over the battle communications network, filled with panic. "Admiral, they're not defending. They're hunting us. How did they know exactly where we would arrive?" Before Kwan could respond, a calm human voice spoke directly to him over the communication system. "Admiral Kwan, this is Admiral Taehoon of the Human Defense Force. You seem surprised by our numbers. How many ships do you have?" Kwan demanded. "Enough," Admiral Taehoon replied simply. "We didn't get here fast, Admiral Kwan. We've been here all along. Did you really think those 200 colonies were our entire civilization? They were just what we wanted you to see." The horrible truth began to dawn on Admiral Kwan. The hegemony had been completely fooled. For 300 years, they had been watching and cataloging human civilian settlements while the real human civilization remained completely hidden. Across the galaxy, emergency reports flooded into hegemony command centers. On the capital world, explosions rocked government buildings as hidden sabotage devices activated. Critical infrastructure failed simultaneously on dozens of major worlds. Most shocking of all, human fleets appeared from nowhere at key strategic points throughout hegemony territory. Dr. Yuna sat aboard a refugee transport fleeing the burning capital. She had tried to warn them about the humans, but no one had listened. Now she recorded her final research notes as escape pods streamed away from the dying world below. "The humans didn't warn us out of arrogance," she spoke into her recorder. "They warned us out of mercy. They knew what they were capable of, and they tried to save us from learning it the hard way." Around Admiral Kwan, the hegemony fleet began to burn. Human weapons tore through their ships with devastating efficiency. The humans had studied hegemony technology for centuries and knew exactly how to defeat it. What had seemed like an overwhelming force was being systematically destroyed. "Sir," Lieutenant Jihan called out desperately, "the humans are broadcasting surrender terms." Quan listened to the simple message: complete surrender of all hegemony forces and a guarantee that such aggression would never happen again. The alternative was total destruction. As his mighty super dreadnought shuddered under enemy fire, Admiral Quan finally understood the truth. Humanity hadn't been hiding their military strength. They had been hiding their entire civilization. The galaxy would never again underestimate the species that prepared for war while hoping for peace. The galactic hegemony, broken and humbled after 50,000 years of dominance, finally learned why you should listen when humans tell you to run.